Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our 9-month Ultimate World Cruise adventure. Well, we've made it up to day 172 to 174, and that means we have less than 100 days left. And we are celebrating that here in Namibia. We're going to Walvis Bay, and we split up. That's it. We split up.
Welcome to Living Phase 2.
Hi, I'm Mike.
And I'm Nancy, and we're empty nesters striving to live life to the fullest.
And we're living that full life aboard Royal Caribbean's 9-month Ultimate World Cruise on Serenade of the Seas.
We sure are. Well, friends, like Mike said, this is one of the few days where we actually split apart and do different tours. There were just different things that interested each of us. I wanted to go on a cultural tour, and you wanted to do something a little more exciting and thrilling. You wanted a Jeep ride in the sand dunes. So I'm going to tell you about my tour first, and then Mike will tell you about what he did. But I took a Royal Caribbean cultural tour, and that wasn't like what I expected. I knew I was going to go into the culture. In my mind, I'm thinking I'm going to go into the bush and see native villagers of Africa, and they're going to show me their village, and that is not what happened. They took us to, for lack of a better word for it, really the shanty town, the very, very poor area of the town where there's just no running water. There's very little. There's no electricity, really. They have solar panels that they purchase for. They get a solar panel for $2 and what would be the equivalent of $2.50 in Namibian money, that powers one light bulb, and their electric that powers their devices that they need to have charged. So just very poor. No bathrooms. There's a bathroom, one for every 2 homes, and they come through once a week to dump it, and that it's just unfortunate.
But you got to actually see how a not insignificant part of the population is actually living. And that's part of what we're doing this world tour.
Yeah, so I don't really want to harp on that. That's not my intent. The first place, we went to 3 different places. The first place we went to was kind of an herbalist healer's home. We're outside there, and she is showing us the roots and the grass and the things that she makes into teas and to things to help to heal people. And so it was fascinating. She kind of showed us all the different things. Behind her, you can see that they're utilizing everything. They had dog food sacks that they had turned into bags and into aprons. But she's fascinating to listen to. Our guide would also help to interpret if she had trouble really speaking the English language. One of the languages that they speak there, though, is through clicks. And this is one thing that was presented to us. And please, in no way am I making fun of. I just want to show you the types of clicks that were taught to us. And they said a click in and of itself means nothing, but you add a click and a sound to it. The sound may be the same, but the different click can make it mean something. One could mean love, and one mean kill, and one mean tree. I mean, it could mean 3 different things, the same sound, but the click being different. And the first click that they use is at the front of the mouth. They kind of, that would be the first click. The second would be like you're calling a horse, kind of to the side of your mouth, kind of a calling a horse. And then the third is further back on the roof of your mouth. I'm not the expert at clicks, but they'd have a and they do a click and a sound, and that would mean something.
Okay.
So I need to make my throat dry, to say the click good enough. So this is anis nuatam. Anis nuatam. So the click that I'm using here is and I'm using it twice. So anis nuatam. So you also cook it out like a tea.
So that
well,
was
in our guide in Port Elizabeth, a couple of videos ago, if you guys remember that one where we went on the safari, he also was fluent in that language, and that was his
language.
native language. And so we had quite a drive out to Port Elizabeth, and I remember he was teaching us that as well. He's very proud of it, and and we're having a good time with him, and he's just it was a lot of fun to try to learn that. But boy, our mouths are not really
yes, to get your tongue in those right positions is very challenging. Right outside of the herbalist area there next door, there was a daycare. There were children outside. They were playing. They were happy. They were all bouncing on one of those, I call it a hoppity hop, but it's one of those big bouncing balls. And so I took some pictures, and I wanted to tip the lady because of taking pictures. I felt like it was the right thing to do. And so I went into the building where she was, and there's a bar.
In the daycare.
A liquor bar there.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, you just had to see it. You just had to be there. Yeah. So in any way that they can make money at all is how they do it. So daycare with a bar. But it works for them. And anyway, the next place that we went to, they wanted to show us some of the foods that they eat. So, and while we were there, they had singers that were singing a cappella, kind of dancing just a little bit. But they had kind of a meal, which a meal meaning like a cornmeal, some kind of it was soft and relatively flavorless. So that was the first thing we had. But then the second thing we had, they kept calling them caterpillars. They're really tree worms, and to me they just looked like huge grubs. That they were cooked. And so I I had said before we started the world cruise, I would try I would not try scorpions, and I would not try tarantulas. Could not eat. I was not going to eat those. So
that wasn't on the menu.
Grubs were not on my list of things I wouldn't try. So I did try a grub. It wasn't bad. It was salty. It was crunchy. And in fact, everybody that was on our tour, nobody said they hated it. There were a few people that couldn't bring themselves to try it, but those that did try it, none of us said that we hated it. It wasn't horrible by any means. So we had that, and I had a Fanta to wash it down. They gave us that. And then they took us to a third home, which is what they called kind of a multi-generational home. And so the grandmother, the mother, and the daughter were living there. I don't think the grandmother really spoke much English because our guide would interpret things. They talked about they would have more than one wife, and the uncle was always the one in charge. It wasn't the husband or the dad. It was always the eldest uncle. It's always the one who ran everything in the home. And she was the lady that was sitting there, the grandmother. She was a seamstress. She had made her dress, and then out of the scraps from the dress, she made little dolls for sale. So very, very interesting to see all of that. Finally, after that, just almost across the road, we were taken to a little bit nicer area that was kind of under construction. They're building like 90 of these homes a year, and they're trying to get people out of this desolate area that they're living in and into nicer homes. But the waiting list is like 10 to 15 years to get into these nicer homes that have, running water and electricity. And anyway, it's a very difficult situation that some of these Western African people are living in.
Yeah. So, but are you? What's your opinion on the tour itself? Are you glad you did it?
I was actually very glad. In fact, I told you I felt like this was one of the better royal tours that I had ever taken. I thought they really delivered a great experience, and so I was glad that I had taken it. It was very interesting to see how people truly live.
educational
It was
and-
very
yeah.
educational.
Well, good,
So,
good.
Yeah.
Well, I had a little bit of a different
You had a
experience.
very different experience.
So I went on as Nancy mentioned earlier, a Jeep tour through the dunes, the sand dunes here in Walvis Bay. And it was really, really, again, much like you said, now this is a private tour. This one was not booked through Royal Caribbean. I contacted a guide directly and set this up for myself and four of our other friends. And what we did is they met us right there at the port. The guide was there on time and everything was good. We got into, it was a Toyota SUV that we got into, and we left from there, and we did a stop right away at the harbor, kind of across from where the ship was. And there was just tons of flamingos. And the reason we stopped there was to let the air out of the tires, because we're going to the sand dunes. You want to lower the air pressure in the tires. And if you remember back to our Abu Dhabi video, if you go back and take a look at that one, they did the same thing there as we're getting ready to have our sand dune adventure there in Abu Dhabi. And the guide said that, oh, you think there's a lot of flamingos now? He goes, just wait, we're going to stop here on the way back and you'll really see it then. So we piled back into the vehicles, started heading out. And the first place we stopped at was the salt fields. So Namibia here in Walvis Bay especially is very famous for salt production. So they do these large salt fields. And they took us out to the actual fields of water that are evaporating out to make the salt from the seawater. And it was beautiful, this beautiful kind of pinkish color. And again, our guide said, yeah, this looks pretty good, the pink right now. But again, wait till we drive back. We'll stop again and the sun will be higher in the sky and you'll get a really good view of it. This salt, actually, much of it is sent to Europe, to the United States. A lot of it's used in the United States for salts on icy roads and things. So this Namibian salt will show up maybe on some of our Michigan roads.
That's interesting.
Yeah. We left the salt fields, kept driving through, and then we started to get into the sand dunes. We're driving along the ocean. It's really beautiful. And then we actually entered the National Reserve area. Now, this is an area where you do have to have a permit. So every day they have to go and apply for a permit, get it to go into this area. And only guides that get the permits are allowed to go in here. And then we just started driving along. And what this is famous for, Sandwich Harbor, it's where the dunes meet the sea. And as I mentioned in the opening, the show Top Gear, the three guys there actually did take vehicles that they either purchased or built or something, I can't remember. And they drove right on this same road we're driving on.
This is absolutely epic.
And what happens here is at high tide, the ocean will actually come all the way up and come to the bottom of the dunes, and there is no road then. So you cannot be here when the tide comes up because there's no place to go. And you can, if you're not careful, you can actually get trapped to where you can't, you'll just get stuck in the ocean at that point. And so we drove that for a while and then turned off into the dunes and started driving through the different dune areas. And then we started to see some animals, because between the different dunes are some grassy areas. We saw aurochs, springbok, we saw, all kinds of different animals. But then as we're driving in the dunes, one of the guides, so there were three vehicles together. The guide that was driving our vehicle actually owns the company, and he contracted with a third because he had enough. And this was an independent contractor, and we kind of nicknamed him Crocodile Dundee. And he knew just everything. I mean, he really knew the animals.
That's
and
neat.
the
That's nice.
And so
to have a guide
anytime
like
somebody had a question, they'd get on the radio, they'd call, and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's this carnivore vulture bird that you're seeing over here," or whatever. Well, we're driving along, and what we're looking for is this very specific gecko. They were mentioning they were hoping to find one. And we're going along, all of a sudden you hear on the radio, he's like, "I see it," and their vehicle stops. We all stop and get out. And he had run up to one of the sand dunes and seen this just little tiny mark in the sand dunes. I don't know how he saw it. And that was the mark that this gecko had buried itself. Now, what this gecko is famous for, it only comes out at night. It does not get exposed to sunlight, and it buries itself during the day. So he actually dug down, found the gecko so he could show it to us. And he, while he's showing it, of course, he's protecting it from the sunlight and everything. But this is it has no melamine. It has no, coloration to its skin. You can see right through its skin is translucent. And, this is a very unique gecko for this area of the world. It's something you won't see anywhere else. And so we looked at it for a little bit and then let the little guy get back into his hut, or back into the sand dunes. And as the guide said, you can't rebury him, he has to do it. So, we put him down, and I was lucky enough to get just a little bit of video as he's digging back into the dunes and going back into his home. And that was really neat to see. I enjoyed that. And then as we said, we got back in the vehicles and headed up and rode over the dunes, up and down, and going to the heights of the dunes. And we ended up at the top of one of the dunes and went for kind of a walk along the edge of the dunes up there. And while we're walking up there in this dune that's hundreds of feet up from the ocean and this beautiful view, they break out a couple tables, they get tablecloths, and they lay out champagne and beer and all these canapes from a local bakery that they get made, and we were just enjoying it.
And I had grubs.
So yeah, it was we're in the middle of the desert on this dune, sitting by these 4x4 vehicles, having an extremely civilized,
feeling a little jealous about that, but
and they had little fried vegetables and some cocktail weenies and different things, and even some calamari, and it was a very neat experience to be. And I just sat down on the dune with a bottle of beer and just looked out over this amazing, just God's country, as we would say, with the ocean coming up and splashing against the dunes, and just enjoyed that, with our friends up there. Well, after that, they cleaned everything up. They got it all packed away again. And we went on and some more dune rides. We saw a few more animals, and then had to make our way back, into town. Now, on the way back, we did stop again then, as we mentioned, at those salt fields. And it was just a spectacular, almost purple. And now what this is caused from the algae and the chemicals from the salt evaporating, that's what's causing these different colors. But it's just a brilliant pink that you can see here. And we drove on from there, and sure enough, now it was low tide, and we went to that same area that we stopped at in the first part. Now all the flamingos are right up on shore. Thousands of flamingos, just thousands. And you can see them right across from our ship. And in fact, we looked back from our balcony later across that bay, and that's where I was pointing out to you, saying, yeah, you see that white up there that looks like foam? That's not foam. That's thousands of flamingos up there. So that was neat to see. And there's two types of flamingos, the greater flamingo and the lesser flamingo. And the lesser is the more pink and smaller one. And the greater one stays more white and stands a little bit taller. And so saw both of those and headed back to the ship. And actually we were there about the same time, because as I was coming in, you were coming back from that little market you mentioned.
I did. I got in a little bit earlier before you. In fact, I had made it to the Windjammer and had some proper lunch.
You didn't? The grubs didn't fill you up?
I only had one.
Oh, okay.
But then I went out, just outside of the ship was a little straw market area, and I did get a couple of souvenirs. Now, there were also women there that were in native outfits, and they were topless, and they were wanting you to take their picture for tips, and I couldn't bring myself to take a picture of a naked woman. I just couldn't. But they were there. They kind of also cover themselves with some sort of a red rock that helps to protect their skin from the sun as well. But,
and I stopped along the way back. They had a small souvenir shop that our guide stopped at, and actually that's where I got this T-shirt. So commemorizing our big five. I didn't quite get to, I don't know if you can see it here. There's the rhino. Let's see here. Yeah, there's
we still haven't seen.
We haven't seen the
cheetah.
leopard. We haven't seen the leopard. Yeah. So it's but we got 4 out of the 5, so that gives us a reason to come back and try to catch that fifth of the big 5. And I got a patch, as I always try to collect. One thing to note, Nancy did step out of the port area and went to that little shopping area. They did warn us, just be very careful, especially if you're alone or in a small group. You want to watch your valuables. You know, take the standard precautions. There is some pickpockets and some less than savory characters in some of those areas. So like in many places, you want to really be aware and know your surroundings and know where you're going.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah.
I do have a security bag, that wear over my shoulder, and my phone is always on a lanyard attached, so it's not loose, anything like that. But there were quite a number of cruise passengers, and I knew they were out there at that little straw market,
Right.
so I wasn't alone.
Don't
which
get
was-
separated from the herd.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That's
well,
right.
Nancy, Namibia, we missed our. As we mentioned yesterday, we missed our Luderance stop, which would be it's basically a quaint little German type village. So we didn't get to see that in Namibia. This was our only stop. Well, would you come back to Namibia?
No, no.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen what I want to see here. So I'm happy and don't need to come back.
Yeah, for me, one of the big things I did want to see was Sandwich Harbor. It's extremely famous. It's known worldwide, and it was great. It was exactly what I expected. In fact, even better.
Well, would you come back?
No, I think I'm with you. Even to be honest, I mean, even our guide kind of said, he's like, you've seen some of the greatest things here in Namibia. Yeah, so again, probably not. There are places in Africa that we've already said we want to come back, South Africa, and we want to go, on a proper safari more inland to other countries. But yeah, I think I agree with you. Not necessarily probably coming back here. Now, as we always say, I would say if you're on a cruise ship swinging around the west side of Africa, Walvis Bay and probably Luderance, which was that tender port, are great stops. I mean, this is nothing to avoid. Don't be afraid. Get you a tour. Go see Sandwich Harbor. Take a cultural tour like you did. This is a great cruise ship stop. Just not something that's going to be on our list probably to come back.
That I agree. So, well, we had a couple of sea days following. We did get to see a cultural show that was very good. They did a cappella singing and some African dancing, and so that was fun to
That was
watch.
excellent. I enjoyed that a lot.
We saw a couple headline shows over the sea days. So we saw a comedian ventriloquist,
Magician.
a magician,
Comedian, ventriloquist, magician.
and he was
okay.
cute. He was cute. That's what we always say. There was another headline show. His name was Kiva. He was fascinating. He plays these really unusual instruments, like they didn't have
Theremin.
yes, but they have this harp. He plays on one of the other Royal Caribbean ships where they've got the harp that goes all the way at the stage up to the balcony, and he plays all the strings of the harp, and we didn't have that harp set
called
up on
an
our
earth harp.
ship.
Earth harp.
That's right. Thank you. But we got to see a little video of that. But he was fascinating to listen to. Even the orchestra that was there, they were just all just in awe at him playing these various instruments. So that was neat to see. But now we're down to 100 days remaining. We had a little party in the pub where we sang the first 50 verses of 100 bottles of beer on the wall. And yeah,
Just
so
a little celebration wake. I don't know however you want to say it.
84 bottles of beer. You take one down, pass it around. 83 bottles of beer on the wall. So now we're down into the double digits remaining on our cruise. So boy, time is flying.
Yes.
It just is really flying.
Yeah, we're on the downhill side now.
They had a red, green, yellow party.
That was just weird.
Okay, I had to Google. I had never heard of that. So you wear green if you're available, you wear red if you're taken, and you wear yellow if your relationship is complicated. I went just to take a look. I wanted to see the train wreck that was going to happen.
But almost
was
never.
fine.
The
Yeah, it
ship
was
is so
fine.
quiet at this point. There's so few people on board
Yes.
that, I mean, there really weren't that many people down there or anything.
No.
I did think it was funny that
But it's
the
just-
shirt you had on had some green in it, though. I'm not sure what.
And yellow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was. That was an unusual event to have on the ship.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah,
oh well.
I've heard they've done that on other ships too as well. But
Probably.
but yeah, that was kind of funny. And but yeah, so then we head on out.
We're going to Angola.
This is a tough one, folks. You're gonna have
Yeah.
you're gonna have to tune into this next video, as we always try to find the positive, to find, we've always found things we love in the different places that we've gone to, and this was our most challenging, most difficult, most uncomfortable
It's not
stop
going to
ever.
be positive.
Yeah.
It was. This has been the only. Angola was the only place I have been truly fearful. Truly fearful.
so
friends, you're just.
We'll
gonna
tell
have
the
to-
story at the next video, so be
Yeah.
sure to tune into that one, and we'll tell you our interesting tale of the tour in Angola.
But you
So,
can see we made it back to the ship.
we did.
So
Yes.
it does all
So,
have a happy ending.
That's right. We're
And that's
blessed
all.
in
That's
that.
all that matters,
Yeah,
right?
That's right. Well, thank you
So-
very much for tuning in.
Thank you, friends. Have a beautiful day. Take care.
Yeah,
Bye bye.
Bye-bye now.